So what we've done is pulling the exhaust off here. The things that we got to take apart are the two hanger brackets. Well, this being a 2-into-1 system is just a hanger bracket on this side. You got 2 bolts here. There's a bolt here holding it to the transmission mount. You have your 2 O2 sensors that are threaded into the exhaust system. And you, of course, got your 2 header nuts on each of the studs here on the front and rear heads. On this bike, since it was a 2-into-1 system, and we are going to put a 2-into-2 system, if you will, the Power Tune Duals, there is a bracket underneath here that we have to take off. And as well, there are 4 bolts on the transmission case on the oil pan. And then on the other side, there is the same hanger bracket that's over here does not exist on this bike. So we had to purchase those separately. There's the rubber grommet here, and as well the bracket that holds and supports the muffler. I guess the next step here is to remove the air cleaner and install one of 2 intakes that S&S offers. We offer a teardrop air cleaner, and we offer the dual runner system. So this particular customer is going to get the tuned runner, and we'll get this air cleaner off and show you what's all involved there. The tools are really simple. Basically, you need a 5/16 Allen wrench, and you just take this center bolt off. The next tool we need is a T27 Torx, and there's 3 screws here that go right through the air cleaner and through the back plate into the throttle body. We'll pull them out. And there's 2 little black hoses here in the back for the breathers that you basically can pull them off at the same time. The next thing we need is a 7/16 to take out the 2 breather bolts that are attaching the back plate to the cylinder head, if you will. Get them out. And so there's the whole back plate with the 2 breather bolts, and that's it as far as taking off the air cleaner. Okay, we're going to work on the installation of the air cleaner kits. We have 2 options during our stage 1 install. Stage 1 being the exhaust and the intake installation. So we're gonna focus on the installation of the teardrop air cleaner. We have 2 air cleaner options from S&S. You have the tuned runner and the teardrop. So we're going to focus on the teardrop here. I have the contents kind of laid out here for us in order. I'm going to put on the adapter plate. What is this? Basically a billet plate that changes the bolt pattern of the throttle body on a stock Harley to the S&S teardrop bolt pattern. The first thing we're going to do here is install the adapter plate. Put the gasket behind the plate and stick in the bolts with Loctite applied, blue Loctite, and use an 1/8 inch Allen wrench to run these little button head screws into the throttle body. Okay, the first one started. Make sure that when you put this adapter on that the notch for the breather tube is just to the right of center on the top side. Okay, the next step is to torque those to spec. And the spec, of course, is in your installation instructions. Next step is basically to install your breather tube, your breather hardware. When the kit comes to you, it's going to have this uncut long tube, and the reason why I guess the tube is like this is because of various engines that this air cleaner kit fits on are different heights, and so as the motor grows, of course, this tube has to get longer and shorter. Okay, so it's basically a cut to fit type of a tube, and you want to center the T in the tube basically in the cutout of the billet adapter here. And so you can take and put your banjo fitting and basically thread that into the head. Okay, get both of them in there, determine the tube length, eyeball it, and basically cut the tube so that it would, of course, seat all the way onto the banjo fitting. Okay, so as far as the assembly of the banjo fitting, this would be the banjo fitting onto the breather hardware. You have a coated metal washer, one with a large diameter ID and one with a small ID. Okay, the large diameter ID goes onto the hardware first. You can see how there's a taper on this hardware. So that large diameter ID, of course, fits all the way over that, and the small diameter ID won't. So, of course, the big one goes on first. Now the banjo fitting goes on next. Banjo fitting has a small ID and a large ID. Okay, if you put the large ID on first, it's loose. So it certainly needs to go on such that the small ID is towards the taper. Okay, small washer next, and put a little blue Loctite on that hardware. And this hardware has a 7/8 hex head on it, so you could use a 7/8 wrench or a 7/8 socket. And you want to align your banjo fitting so that the hose coming out of it is facing between the throttle body and the bracket on top of the throttle body. Okay, so I'm going to take my pre-cut hose, as long as my banjo is loose here. And basically push it on there. I already got the clamp on the hose. I'm just going to come out here and push it on. Of course, you can use the pliers to relieve that spring clamp, but I was able to overcome it here. I'll back this out so I can get it to swing. And it sits down in there just like we want it to. Okay, I just got it snug for now. I'll come back and torque it here after I get the front one installed again. Big coated washer ID first. The small end of the banjo goes on first, and then the small washer. Lock tight. Get your bolt started. Grab a pliers for this one. Okay. All right, grab a 7/8 socket and torque it down. There's two decorative covers. The banjo fitting would come through this slot right here. It has a little button head screw. So we put a little Loctite on that screw. And push that right on there. 5/32 Allen. And and torque. The 3 cap screws for the back plate have pre-applied Loctite, so I don't need to install Loctite here. This is a 3/16 Allen. Install the hose. I can get my finger right behind the tube here and just push it on. One thing to note is that the clamp for the backplate tube is a little different diameter than the clamp for the two banjos, so there should be 2 clamps that are small and 1 clamp that is large in the kit. I need your gasket behind your backplate, and let's see here, I can hold it up. The gasket's got a irregular shape for when it's put on a carburetor. It's kind of a multi-purpose gasket, so basically installs like so. I just want to get my fastener through the gasket here. Okay, get that one started. Second one. And torque. Okay, back plate's on, fastener's torqued, we're ready for the air cleaner. Okay, S&S air cleaner is a basically a pleated gauze style filter. There's a little tang here on the back plate that the air cleaner needs to kind of be, forced out around, if you will, towards the teardrop shape to go over, and basically holds itself in place. The S&S air cleaner has a little stinger, we call it, for increased performance and better airflow. As well, you have a nice radius backplate to create basically a venturi like for a velocity stack. So we're going to basically line up everything here. Throw a little Loctite on these too. And you need a large Phillips screwdriver. Tighten these down. The first thing we're going to install here is the adapter plate and the gasket for the throttle body. Okay, so these fasteners come with pre-applied Loctite, and you need a 3/16 Allen to install them. Now there's 3 bolt holes in the throttle body, but you only use the upper 2 because the third hole is used at a later time when we install the tuned runner itself. 3/16. And then you can go ahead and torque those 2 fasteners to the specification. The next step is to kind of do a sub-assembly of the tuned runner. The tuned runner comes with a ABS plastic cover to cover up the unsightly connector on a throttle-by-wire throttle body. And you have a plate and a gasket. The plate, actually, there are 2 dowel pins here that it mates to. And so, let's see here. As it goes on there, you can see it locks in place. So it basically goes right into the cover, like so. And inside the cover, there's 2 conical shaped features that will recess or receive the bracket. So we lay that piece in there, and then we grab the tuned runner. On the outside of the part, the tuned runner is going to install like that. Okay, so you can lay your tuned runner on the bench, put your gasket on. Here we go. Slide it over here. I'm aligning the bolt holes with the holes in the tuned runner. Now there's 3 tapered head screws here. I'm going to apply Loctite to all 3, some blue Loctite, and basically bolt the adapter plate and the plastic cover and the gasket all to the tuned runner. And these are 5/32 Allen heads. Okay, now we're going to finish torquing the bolts to the tuned runner. Get them even here. Okay. Okay, there's your tuned runner assembly. Okay, now we can basically put that in place over the throttle body. There's a gasket and 2 screws. The gasket has to be oriented such that the extra material here covers the breather passage on the adapter plate. So like so there. So I'm going to lay this in here, and I'm going to stick the fasteners through so it holds the gasket in place, because obviously once I get it on there, I can't get at it. So the long bolt goes in the hole on the bottom of the throttle body, and the short bolt goes in the top. So I'll stick the short bolt through the gasket. And the long bolt through as well. Okay. And we need some Loctite. Again, there's dowel pins that this plate aligns to the inner plate, so you should feel that engage, and that should automatically align these holes up for you. And you need a 5/32 Allen wrench. Run those screws in. Okay. And we'll torque them down. Okay. All right, the last step in installing the tuned runner is to install the air filters. I have the S&S symbol. You need to clock that appropriately so that you can read it. So get a good look at it from the front. And then of course you want to orient your hose clamp over the back side so that it's out of sight. So just take a nut driver, 5/16 nut driver, or straight screwdriver, whatever you have or prefer, and tighten it down. No real torque spec here, but basically I grab the filter and put some force on it and see that it isn't going to move on us. So that's pretty sturdy. And the next filter here, on the top. Probably could have done the top first, but now these tune runners are available in blue or red filters as well. The finish on the tune runner is available in wrinkle black or chrome. So there you have a complete installation of the S&S Performance tune runner. All right, we're going to talk about the exhaust portion of stage 1. S&S has a variety of mufflers available for your FL model, whether it's a Road Glide or Electric Glide Standard. We have kind of our top of the line model muffler here, the SPO, and then we have a variety of 3.5-inch mufflers that are more economical. So what we're installing on this bike is the SPO, and some of the features of the SPO are, of course, a heavy-duty gauge steel shell. It comes with, of course, a baffle that is wrapped in steel wool with fiberglass wrapping around the steel wool, so it's kind of a double layer baffle, if you will, or packing. And then the end of the muffler has an end cap, and this one here is a black Xylon coated end cap. It's a high temperature coating that we use that is very durable. Okay, we're going to install the step 1 exhaust system, the Power Tune Duals from S&S. We've got the bike prepped here up on the rack. We got the stock exhaust system pulled off, and the first thing we need to do is to remove the flanges from the stock exhaust system. This was a stock 2-in-1 system off of this Road Glide, 2010 Road Glide. And basically what you need is a snap ring pliers to spread these little clips here and pop them off over the tapered end of the pipe. So you just squeeze them off, and then the flange just falls off of the pipe at that point. So there's one. And 2. Okay, we'll set that aside for the time being, and we'll go and put these flanges on the new system over here on the bench. This is the new header from S&S. Power Tune Duals has a crossover in the middle of the pipe. It also has the O2 sensor bungs, the large ones and the small ones for the 2010. 2010 needs the small ones for the stock O2 sensors, and then the large bungs up here by the heads would be basically for a dyno tuner or maybe an add-on closed loop system, that type of thing. And then the system is also supplied with the plugs for both the small bungs and for the large ones. So if you're not going to use them when you install it, you can certainly cap them off. And that's all included in the kit. So another cool feature that this system has is the tapered end, which works very well with the stock gaskets that are conical shaped. The old style ends that were just kind of bull-nosed, if you will, or more square, they tend to take the conical gasket and squeeze it into the port and, of course, restrict flow. So I consider this a nice improvement on an exhaust system that works well with a gasket and, of course, seals very reliably. So we'll go ahead and put the flanges on. Got to make sure that you have the counter bore that's in the flange facing towards the snap ring that's going to go on after it. And spread it apart. Other side on there. And then you can see how the snap ring fits down into that counter bore nice and snug. Okay, we'll go on to the front here. There it is, and that one's fitting in there nice as well. Okay, so basically we're ready to install the header. First thing, of course, is to make sure that you have a good gasket in there. We've got a new set of basically a tapered gasket. They're not included with the system, so you'll need to get a set of exhaust gaskets. Sometimes, the gaskets are in really good shape and you can possibly reuse them, but that's up to the installer's discretion. Certainly we recommend a new one. All right, So you kind of want to get the header pipe up into one port and then ease it into the other and get the flanges aligned on the studs. And once you get the pipe up into the gaskets, it'll pretty much hang there by itself. So then you kind of can put the flanges on and go grab your exhaust stud nuts. And we're just reusing the stock nuts here. And we're just going to put them on loose for now while we mock up all the rest of the exhaust or install the rest of the exhaust, and we'll tighten these at a later time. Okay, before we put the crossover pipe on, this bike being a 2010 Road Glide and then any like an Ultra or dual pipe stock exhaust would certainly have to have this bracket removed here. And then the S&S Power Tune Duals has a bracket that goes right here on the back of the transmission. So we get this bracket off and we need to remove these 4 bolts on the back of the transmission oil pan. So we'll go ahead and remove that now. So now I'm going to install the bracket for the S&S Power Tune Dual. I got some blue Loctite on my grade 8 fastener here, and basically the bracket just slides up into place. And you need a 7/16. Okay, comes on far enough. Put the other 3 in. And then the bracket's universal, you can flip it either direction. Okay, we got all these snugged up. Next thing we'll do is come around with a torque wrench. You have to kind of have a click style torque wrench to be able to do these because of the rack or the lift being under the bike. You're not going to be able to see the reading on your torque wrench. So we'll go get our click style torque wrench and finish torquing this bracket. Okay, now that we've got our bracket installed, we're going to go ahead and put on our crossover pipe. It comes with a clamp supplied from S&S. So you just slide the crossover tube on here until the bracket on the back of the crossover tube meets up, flush with the bracket on the transmission. Okay, you got 2 supplied 5/16 fasteners here, and you just put your Loctite on, align the holes, and thread them in. And a 1/2-inch wrench. Tighten them down, torque them to spec as well. Okay, the next thing that we need to tighten up is the hose clamp here, or the pipe clamp. The 9/16 wrench. Turn it so that the fastener is essentially straight up and down. So it's fairly well hidden. Okay, we can torque that to spec, and the next thing we're going to do is put on the heat shields. This is the mounting tab for one of the hose clamps that would go through. One thing that you want to do when you're doing your mock-up, I guess, is determine which direction you want to insert your hose clamp. So for this one here in the back, I know that I want the threaded part or the nut face to be facing downward, so that when it goes on the pipe, I can tighten it from below. Okay, so I'll just kind of show you here how we do it, get it over the pipe. Okay, there's a heat shield on there, so I know that there was one here, here, and here. Okay, so I'm going to put this one on so it faces here. This one I'll have it facing this way, and this one I'll have facing down. So I'll go ahead and put those clamps on this heat shield, and go ahead and get them all started so that all the hose clamps are essentially engaged but loose, and then we'll snug them all down kind of evenly as we go. Okay, now that I've got all my heat shield clamps on, my front and rear heat shield, I'm going to put my two O2 sensors in place here, thread them in the back of the pipe. I guess it's important to know that before I pull them off the stock system, I marked front and rear so I know which one goes into which pipe. I basically did that by taking a scratch awl and scratching a little R into one of the sides of the O2 sensors. So find my little R here and put it in the rear head. And these just take a 9/16 wrench to tighten. Good and snug. If you got a bike that's got, you know, a lot of miles on it, probably not a bad idea to put some anti-seize on the threads of the O2 sensor and in the header pipe as well. This is pretty much a new bike, so we're just going together. And I kind of turned the O2 sensor backwards a couple of turns so that the wires were kind of pre-wound, so when it does tighten up, they're not all twisted. Okay, and then I'm going to stick the wires back in the wire loom here. There's two plastic clips, or one rather, and make sure that they're not going to chafe or burn on anything. Then we can go on to put the heat shield on the other side. All right, here's the third small heat shield for the left-hand side of the bike. I'm just kind of looking at the back so that it's evenly spaced around the header. And tighten the first clamp down. Again, this is just a 1/4 inch nut driver. Could use a straight screwdriver as well. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is install these plugs because this bike doesn't have the large O2 sensors on it. And we're not ready to tune it yet, so before we get over to the dyno, we need to have some plugs in the holes. And it's a good idea to anti-seize these as well. All right, the next step is to install the mufflers, and one important thing to note that when you go from a Road Glide 2-in-1 header system, stock system, to the S&S Power Tune Duals, of course we talked about you need to remove that bracket, but some things that you need in addition to your header pipes and everything is on the left-hand side of the bike, you do not have this hanger bracket and you do not have this rubber grommet. So those are a couple of additional parts that you'll need to purchase from your local Harley dealer. Additionally, if you had a 2-in-1 exhaust system, you only had one exhaust clamp, okay? So you'll have to purchase an exhaust clamp as well, because you can reuse the one that you have, but of course you don't have two of them. So you need to have the additional one. So you need to purchase, in addition to the system, you need to purchase this hanger bracket, the rubber isolator that goes around that bracket, and as well one of these pipe clamps to make your system install completely. I guess we'll go ahead and put on the mufflers. Another thing to note is when we were putting on the heat shields, we went ahead and tightened up the flanges on the heads because if you don't tighten those flanges before you put the heat shields on, you won't be able to get your socket in there too. So we went ahead and torqued them to spec. So everything forward here is essentially installed and torqued to spec, tight, and so all we have left is to put on the mufflers. So mufflers, pretty straightforward. You want to orient your clamp so that it's facing, you know, the right direction. It's not going to interfere with the heat shield. And slide it over the header pipe. And back here you want to look at the pipe or mounting hardware. You want to center the bracket in between these two mounts on the muffler. So right now it needs to go forward about a ½ inch. There we go. Centered on there, and then go ahead and put your Loctite on your fasteners, and we're ready to go here. So now once you get them on there and torqued, you can still move the muffler, so that's not a concern. And the muffler already has a threaded insert in it, so you don't have to hold anything on the back side. Torque wrench. Alright, now the next thing we want to do is make sure again that we're centered here. You can move the muffler. So what we're looking for here is basically to turn the muffler so that it's flat, you know, and square with the world, if you will. Okay, the last thing here is to get this clamp on this muffler tightened up. And we go to the other side. Alright. Install the left-hand muffler. Again, you got to slide it on so it's centered on the hanger bracket back here. Notice I had the bolts already in the hanger bracket, so I didn't have to fumble around with them. Okay, now that we're centered in that bracket front to back, we need to look at it from the rear and see that it is level. And then the last thing we need to do is tighten this clamp. You might need to get this clamp a little snug so that it's not so easily tilted when you go to tighten it, because it may have moved here as I was tightening it as well. Because I can easily move it still. And this is just a 9/16 again. Okay, look at it from the rear. It's hanging down a little bit. Looks pretty good. There we go. All right, so probably the last, one of the more important things that you need to know is that you got to wipe down the system before you start the bike, or you will pretty much ruin a set of pipes, because the fingerprints will burn on, and there really isn't much you can do to get them off. I mean, you can scrub and buy products, but it's a lot easier and smarter to wipe the pipes down before you start the bike.